Hey everyone, it's Denise Brown from the Caregiving Years Training Academy. Like you, I've had terrible times. And I've had terrible times because of my caregiving experience. And I've also had terrible times unrelated to caregiving and during my caregiving experience. We often think, oh my gosh, isn't caregiving hard enough? Why do I have to manage other terrible unrelated experiences during this? And yet that's what happens. And we talk about how we get lost during our caregiving experience. And I also think we get lost during a terrible time. And it occurred to me that something we lose during a terrible time is what we're good at. Life is hard during a terrible time. And it takes away our view of our skills, what we excel at, because it seems like everything is going so badly. If we were better at stuff, it wouldn't go this badly. And the truth is, it's not going worse because we're putting skills in place that help it not get worse. There are things that are out of our control, and yet we use expertise to stop everything from going off the rails. We don't see that because we're in the midst of a terrible time. So I had an insight about this last month. I was delivering a workshop to about 120 financial planners, and I had been asked to deliver a workshop that focuses on solving 3 caregiving challenges through financial planning. So that's what I did. And I gave the formal presentation. We opened it up to Q&A, and someone asked a great question. And the question was, these plans that you've described are great, but what do we do if there's a conflict, if people are not in agreement? I thought, oh my gosh, of course. Of course there's going to be conflict. Of course we're not going to be in agreement. Of course there's going to be disputes. So I said, okay, that's a great question. What we need to do is think through, how do we come into agreement about how we're going to manage conflicts going forward? What does the family system agree to about managing conflicts? Now, I know that a plan like that is still going to get blown up, or parts of it, but it's a good place to start. And I thought of it from the perspective of legal contracts. When you enter into a legal agreement, the contract stipulates, how do you manage when there's a dispute? And I know that because of disputes I've had during legal agreements, which made me think, oh my gosh, I know how to manage conflicts and disputes, because during my terrible times, that's what I was managing. And it occurred to me, I have an expertise. So from that, I realized, oh my gosh, during these terrible times when I was managing conflicts and disputes, I would have loved to have support from someone who could help me figure it out. So then I created a course that's called the Conflict Resolution Strategist. It's not about being a mediator. It is not about getting a group together to come to consensus. It's around supporting that individual, typically the primary family caregiver, who is just overwhelmed by conflicts and disputes because of a caregiving situation. And then that resolution strategist helps that family caregiver figure out, how am I going to manage this? How am I going to cope with this? We all have an expertise that we're using during the terrible times. It's just that the terrible times cover up that expertise. What we want to do is uncover it. And that takes a step back. We need to get some perspective, some space from the terrible times. Something I did, maybe a couple months ago during one of my terrible times, I, for whatever reason, started thinking about, I don't think I'm giving myself enough credit for what I've created and developed. So I put a timeline up on my website, careyearsacademy.com, of what I've developed over a period of time. I'm actually going to move it off the front page because I realized this is for me. It's not for you, really, but it made me feel so much better putting it up here. So I started doing this timeline of, I guess, my milestones of my expertise. And then I felt so much better. So I realized a timeline can help us get that perspective of our expertise that we've mastered during a terrible time. So I invite you to join me on June 24th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time to figure out how to tap into your expertise that a terrible time covered up for you. And during that meeting, that virtual meeting, we're going to create 3 timelines. A timeline for our terrible time, a timeline of our healing time. And you might think, oh, I'm not sure if I healed or not, but you did something. You did something that promoted even a little bit of healing. It's just that the terrible time has covered it up. So we want to step back with a timeline so you can see it. And then we're going to uncover your expertise. Once we do that, we're going to map out what could be next steps. And then I'll tell you about how you can continue to work with me around taking your expertise into your next steps. So if you'd like to join me on June 24th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time to create your timelines to get space from your terrible times so you can uncover your expertise, register at caringourway.com, which is our community. So we have this great community where we connect through events and special challenges and just daily get-togethers. So join us on caringourway.com. You'll be able to register to join me for Tap Into Your Expertise, which is June 24th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And then you'll get a heads up about other special events that we host when we have our call for presentations and when we have any kind of special deals with our caregiving training programs. Okay, I'm looking forward to this. We're going to spend an hour together. Again, we're going to develop 3 timelines to tap into your expertise, to show you that you've mastered skills during the terrible times that you can use in your good times and to stretch out your good times. Okay, looking forward to seeing you June 24th. Again, register at caringourway.com. I've also put a link in the show notes. Okay, thanks very much.